What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, undefeated 3-division world champion, former junior welterweight undisputed world champion, now the reigning undisputed welterweight world champion, who is widely acknowledged and recognized as the #1 best pound-for-pound fighter in the world, and Terence Bud Crawford. Terence Crawford is 40 wins, no losses, no draw, 31 big wins by way of knockout. He is 35, he'll be 36 years of age, 5'8" with a 74-inch arm reach. He absolutely dominated his mega showdown with former unified welterweight world champion, 3-belt WBA, WBC, IBF world champion, superstar boxer, who was top 5 pound-for-pound best fighters in the world when he fought them, in Earl the Truth Spence Jr. Earl Spence Jr. is now 28 wins, 1 loss, no draw, 22 big wins by way of knockout. He is 33 years of age, 5'9.5" with a 72-inch arm reach. They fought July 29th, Las Vegas, Nevada, T-Mobile Arena. And Terence Crawford put on a absolutely dazzling performance, right? Where Terence Crawford dropped Errol Spence in the 2nd round, twice in the 7th round, and stopped him in the 9th round. Beautiful, dazzling performance by Terence Bud Crawford. And that was a highly anticipated fight. It was a fight that we wanted to see for years. The most anticipated fight in a decade, and the most competitive fight on paper, if there ever were one, in the last 40 years, since September 16, 1981, when Sugar Ray Leonard took on Thomas the Hitman Hearns. This fight turned out to be anything but a 50-50 fight, as Terence Crawford absolutely dominated this fight. Dominated the fight. And now he's widely acknowledged and recognized. I always had him at #1 pound for pound for years. But there was many people that questioned that. And now Terence Crawford put that to bed. And so a lot of fighters now, Terence Crawford has a lot of momentum, a lot of hype right now. He is hot. And so 2 fighters are now calling for a fight with Terence Crawford that had no interest in fighting Terence Crawford. One being former unified WBC, WBA welterweight world champion, superstar boxer, Keith one-time Thurman, who is 30 wins, 1 loss, no draw, 22 wins by way of knockout, 34 years of age, 5'8" with a 69-inch arm reach. Keith Thurman gave Terence Crawford the runaround for years. But this is not shocking, because Keith Thurman has given also Errol Spence the runaround for years. Hence the reason why Errol Spence vowed not to fight him. And now Terence Crawford has vowed not to fight Keith Thurman. And now Keith Thurman wants to fight Terence Crawford, right? He had an opportunity to make himself the mandatory challenger for Terence Crawford in 2022, and Keith Thurman turned down the opportunity to fight Terence Crawford, right? He turned it down. Now you also have 2-division world champion, Puerto Rican superstar boxer, Danny Swift Garcia, is 37 wins, 3 losses, no draw, 21 wins by way of knockout. He is 5'8" with a 68, 69-inch arm reach, okay? Danny Garcia, we last seen him in the ring July 2022. So he's been out the ring for over a year as well, okay? Now Danny Garcia, who had an opportunity, he's 35 years of age, okay? Danny Garcia had an opportunity to fight Terence Bud Crawford, and he too turned down the opportunity to fight Terence Crawford on multiple occasions. He could have fought Terence Crawford when he was at junior welterweight. The unified champion junior welterweight, Terence Crawford, was looking to fight Danny Garcia at junior welterweight, and Danny Garcia was unwilling to oblige Terence Crawford. Now Terence Crawford is in a position he's in both Keith Thurman and Danny Garcia, whom fought each other. They fought each other. Danny Garcia fought Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman beat Danny Garcia to unify the belts. That was March of 2017. Okay? Danny Garcia was fighting at a catchweight at 144 instead of fighting at 140 and 147. And Keith Thurman was uninterested in fighting Terence Crawford. Keith Thurman, he stated that Terence Crawford hasn't done anything. He's too small, right? And he didn't even recognize the WBO title that Terence Crawford held after he made his debut in the welterweight division in 2018, where he beat Jeff Horn for the WBO title. Keith Thurman said that he didn't even recognize the WBO title as a real title, right? And he recognized Errol Spence as the undisputed champion because Errol Spence held the belts that was in yesteryear before. The last belt to be acknowledged as one of the four major sanction belts was the WBO title. Errol Spence held the WBA, WBC, and IBF, and Keith Thurman said that he recognizes Errol Spence as the undisputed champion, right? He didn't recognize Terence Crawford's WBO title, right? And he stated that Terence Crawford, had to wait his turn and he was too small. It just absolutely gave Terence Crawford the runaround, right? And so with that said, now Keith Thurman came back. All these Keith Thurman has fought 3 times in 6 years. 3 times in 6 years. And now Keith Thurman, he came back in February 2022. He beat Mario Barrios after almost a 3-year layoff since losing to Manny Pacquiao in 2019, July 2019. So he comes back, he beats Mario Barrios. At the same time, Terence Crawford beats Sean Porter in November. Keith Thurman says that he don't see nothing special in Terence Crawford, and that he would gladly fight Terence Crawford, but he needed 8 months, which would put Keith Thurman on par with his normal schedule of fighting in January, February, and in July. As he did, he fought Josito Lopez in January, then he fought Manny Pacquiao in July. And so Terence Crawford said, well, why you got to wait 8 months if you're confident in yourself? Let's make it happen ASAP. Keith Thurman was unwilling to oblige. Nonetheless, Keith Thurman didn't fight him. Then the World Boxing Council, President Mauricio Sulaiman, board of 32 members, they had a bright idea. Right now, Keith Thurman could have made himself the WBO mandatory challenger for Terence Crawford, and Terence Crawford was available. Keith Thurman priced himself out, said he needed $10 million at least to fight Terence Crawford. Then when the WBC had a bright idea to make Keith Thurman a WBC #1 challenger for Errol Spence, Keith Thurman said, I'm not interested in fighting Terence Crawford. I'm looking to fight Errol Spence. He dropped the ball once again. And Errol Spence has been on record saying, I'm never going to fight Keith Thurman because Keith Thurman gave Errol Spence the runaround. Keith Thurman beat Danny Garcia in the unification March of 2017. Errol Spence won his first title in May of 2017 when he went to the UK and beat former IBF welterweight world champion British superstar boxer Special K Kell Brook. Errol Spence was calling for a unification bout against Keith Thurman, and Keith Thurman went on a hiatus. Disappeared. Absolutely disappeared to the point where the WBC stripped him of the title. And he came back and was on the verge of losing the WBA title. He came back and he lost to Manny Pacquiao. Defended the WBA title against Josito Lopez. Nearly got stopped. Then he fought Manny Pacquiao in July and lost. And that's how Manny Pacquiao ended up with the WBA title. Right? And Errol Spence all that time was calling for a fight with Keith Thurman. When they was on the telecast, they was doing commentary together. Everywhere Errol Spence saw Keith Thurman, he was pressing for the fight, and Keith Thurman was unwilling to oblige and kept giving Errol Spence the runaround. Well, you got to wait your turn, youngster. You'll eventually get your turn. I'm letting the fight marinate. This is what Keith Thurman said. He never gave Errol Spence the opportunity. Then Errol Spence vowed I'm never ever fighting Keith Thurman. I don't like Keith Thurman. I don't like what he stands for and how he acts. And Errol Spence never gave Keith Thurman the fight. But yet, Keith Thurman, yet and still, when the WBC put him in that position, he knew. He continued to tell the world, well, Errol Spence ain't really fight. He ain't really win that belt. So he got to beat me. He got to fight me. He got to beat me to really be the official champion, because he ain't beat me for the belt. Because Errol Spence beat Yordenis Ugas, who beat Manny Pacquiao for the WBA title. He stopped Yordenis Ugas in the 10th round, broke his ribs, nose, and orbital bone. And that's how he gained the WBA title. And Manny Pacquiao beat Keith Thurman split decision. So he said he didn't actually beat me, and then WBC title got stripped of the WBC title. So Sean Porter and Danny Garcia, whom Keith Thurman beat both those guys, they fought for the vacant WBC title, and Sean Porter beat Danny Garcia, and then Errol Spence beat Sean Porter. Then Errol Spence defended the titles after suffering a horrific car accident and beat Danny Garcia. So Keith Thurman knew this, that Errol Spence had no interest in fighting him, and yet, guess what Keith Thurman still did? Keith Thurman still decided to play the game and try to fight Errol Spence, as opposed to fighting Terence Crawford and picking up the WBO title if he beat Terence Crawford, knowing that Terence Crawford and Errol Spence was the biggest fighting boxer. And he chose to not fight Terence Crawford and still push Terence Crawford to the side, saying he didn't acknowledge the WBO title, he's too small, he wasn't special, so on and so forth. Keith Thurman's fighting absolutely nobody. And Danny Garcia, he pushed for the fight against Errol Spence. He fought Sean Porter and Keith Thurman. But he could have fought Terence Crawford when Terence Crawford was at 140 in a mega unification bout. And he said he didn't like the style matchup. Just like Mikey Garcia did the same thing. So he, too, turned down the opportunity to fight Terence Crawford. Now Terence Crawford, like he said, it ain't no fun when the rabbit got the firearm. Now he has it. And he vowed, I'm never ever fighting Danny Garcia or Keith Thurman, ever. Neither one of them is ever getting an opportunity to fight me, because they put me on the shelf and they disrespected me. So there you have it. Terence Crawford rips Danny Garcia, and Keith Thurman says, I'm never ever fighting either one of those dudes. They should have never put me on the shelf. So let's see how this unfolds and plays out. Errol Spence and Terence Crawford have a lot of respect for one another. They fought one another July 29th, Las Vegas, Nevada, T-Mobile Arena. Now they in works of fighting each other again. Looks like in December. So let's see how this unfolds and plays out. But that's all I got for y'all. Make sure you hit the like button, drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. You haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. I'm gone. Peace.